Chris Wood of CLSA says there's been too much focus on the quantum of jobs created rather than quality of jobs in the US, which actually determines the real situation of an economy. Therefore, believes not too much of a boost can be expected in the US economy, and says that markets are heavily dependent on the continuation of the quantitative easing program. Listen in.
I think these pundits talk themselves into a belief that the Fed was wanting to start tapering regardless of the data. So a view was increasingly widely held that Mr. Bernanke, because he's about to leave office in January, wanted to start the tapering process before he left, regardless of the data. Personally, I never saw as far as I can make out, Mr. Bernanke never said this. But there's a community of Fed watchers who have to justify their employment, so they created this impression. So I think it was probably a close decision, and because Mr. Bernanke is now viewed to be leaving office and therefore is considered more of a lame duck than he used to be, every other Fed governor wants to open his mouth and get some publicity and get more attention. But Mr. Bernanke, to be fair to him, never said that. What he said was the policy would be data dependent, and he said what he said in May, which the market chose to freak out about. All Bernanke said was, if hypothetically the US economy grew at a more optimistic rate forecast by the Fed for the next forthcoming fiscal year, then it would imply that the Fed would commence tapering by X. But it was all hypothetical based on the US economy doing better. If you read what Bernanke actually said, Bernanke's a very straightforward guy. He's not like Greenspan saying one thing and doing another. So basically the data was weaker, and therefore the data really accelerates, improves, then they could well commence tapering.
You mentioned that.
But then the more important issue right now actually is who's going to be running the Fed. My simple point on that is that if Mrs. Yellen, it's obvious that Obama, for a reason which remains unclear to me, doesn't want to appoint Mrs. Yellen as Fed chairman. But because it's been such a mismanaged process, he may have to end up appointing Mrs. Yellen as chairman. And if he does, then the benchmark for tightening is going to be much higher under Yellen, which is the big dove.